We don't have a license.
We don't, do we?
I'm
Well,
supposed to have a license, aren't I?
that was just an incidental find then, wasn't it?
Look at this. Lots of times people will say, how do you find all these places? And I try to be polite and just say, you know, all you have to do is just open your eyes. They're all around you. These are, even though they're kind of obscure, they're there for everybody to discover. These, we don't go to places that anybody can't go to. I mean, they're all open to the public. They're all accessible. You just have to open your eyes and have a sense of adventure and go out and find them for yourself. There.
All right, we're back. Welcome to the Florentino Rebuilding Company YouTube channel. So we shot an episode here about a former filming site of Howzer when he came down here. One of many shooting locations he had down here in the city of Long Beach. But we went out to one obscure one that's kind of close to me. We actually passed by, walk by, drive by, as many as you do by this place, sometimes multiple times in a day for the past 25 plus years, and never thinking that, hey, that place looks familiar. Well, that's because it is. Well, we did an episode here the other day. Let's do this real quick. You're gonna love this. Let's go ahead and do that. Well, we did an episode here the other day where we actually went down there, and I didn't have much information in terms of what's the significance of that pole. I walked across the street. I talked to the manager at the Ace Hardware store right there on the corner, and he gave me some advice. What he told me was, hey, don't Google the pole. He said, Google the dead guys' names that are on the pole. I bet you'll find something. And boy, was he right. So we're going to do this quickie update episode on what I have found and the story I'm going to share with you guys. And that's why we're doing a part 2 here. It's an amazing, interesting, eclectic story. And that's probably why Huell went down there. And that's why we're going back right now. So sit back. If you got 4 or 5 minutes to spare, and listen to me and listen about the interesting history about this particular pole, then go ahead, grab your cup of coffee, come on back to the couch, and check out what I got in store for you guys right now. All right, we're back here in the location of the former Howzer filming location or shooting site. But before we get into our very interesting story that we do have today, I want to send a big thank you and a big shout out to Lawrence, manager over here. Lawrence and his staff. His staff was very accommodating over here at Ace Hardware on the corner of good question. Anyway, I'll get you the street locations right now in a second. But anyways, I couldn't have done this video, or at least the second half, and give you guys the following very interesting story without his help. Make sure you visit, especially you locals, and you guys probably already do, for any of your hardware or home improvement needs. Make sure you come down and give Lawrence or his wonderful, helpful staff some business heading their way. Okay, so we're back at the location here on the corner of Lime and 4th Street. Incidentally, Ace Hardware store is located on 4th and Olive, just 1 block over. So today we're coming back. We're just going to tell you some quick stories, some quick notes that I was able to, treasure trove I was able to find, not necessarily on the pole's construction or what year it went up or who built it, that type of stuff. This is on the 3 characters, but in particular one that are part of this pole, and I mean literally. And at the end of this little 4 or 5 minute video, you're gonna see what I mean, because I'm gonna prove that literally. Anyways, we're here to talk about the pole. And that eagle up in the sky there, here we go, that eagle. Something very interesting about that eagle that sits about 200 feet up in the air above the city of Long Beach, and we're going to talk about that right now. Okay, so we're back in our shooting location of the Long Beach pole, and we're basically going to talk about a cast of characters, 3 of them, but in particular one cast of characters who's that typical neighbor that every cool little neighborhood happens to have one of every once in a generation. The guy who owns his own fire engine and maybe dresses up like Santa Claus and gives gifts from his own pocket and out of his own heart to the community on Christmas Day. Well, that was one of these guys here. So these 3 guys, they all knew each other. These 3 guys were extremely patriotic. And these 3 guys, at the end of their life, they wanted to be buried or interred in something patriotic, something that was fitting of them and their love for this country. And guess what, guys? In that pole behind me, there are 3 gentlemen that are interred inside that pole. Got all sorts of my notes. Got about 4 minutes to spare. Let's talk about that wonderful and eclectic history of the Long Beach pole, but in particular Thomas Dembski, or Ski as he was well known. He once held, he's the main guy, okay? He's that guy. He's the guy that owned the fire engine. He's the guy that would dress up as Santa. He dressed up his fire engine like a sleigh on Christmas and drove all over town giving out presents and stuff, and probably had Christmas music blasting, and he was, I'm sure all the neighborhood moms and all the neighborhood kids loved him and probably remember him to this day. He also was a big community church guy. He gave to his local churches here in Long Beach, but he also gave, unbeknownst to anyone down here, he gave big to the big church in downtown Los Angeles, and no one ever knew until the day of his funeral. Anyways, Thomas Dembski, or Ski, he actually owned his own, he had 2 companies. He owned a flag making company, which to this day is well known for making the biggest American flags you can find out there. Many of these flags are, let me see. He had one in particular that set the Guinness Book World Record for the largest flag. His super flag, as it was known, was commissioned by Ski, as his friends called him, on June 14th, 1992, and measures 225 feet by 505 feet and weighed over 3,000 pounds. Each star measures 16 feet point to point and takes 500 people to unfurl it, and is nearly 3 football fields in size. While he was known internationally for his massive flags, which have been unfurled at Super Bowls, the Hoover Dam, Charlotte Motor Speedway, and even a presidential inauguration, he was locally known to many here in the city of Long Beach as just plain old Santa Claus. So you're starting to get the picture here. He also had his own another company where he made bumper stickers for cars and stuff. And we'll get into a little bit of that down the road. There's not too much to cover on that. He was originally from Pennsylvania. Ski moved to Long Beach in 1958. So for years on Christmas, Ski and his perfectly fitted snow white beard and big belly, remember I told you he was that guy. And I've known people exactly like Ski, and so have you. He would put on his red suit and give out candy canes, flags at all the elementary schools around Christmas time and the holidays. He gave out at elementary schools, hospitals, and his neighborhood church, St. Anthony's, which is located on Olive Avenue, just up the road here. Ski would go as far as fixing up his fire truck into a perfectly fitting sleigh to fit his grand personality, and he owned his own big red fire engine. He had music installed on it, and he would drive around when he was being Santa Claus because that was his sleigh and that was who he was. This, according to Patricia Hay Alexander, the current owner of Ski's flag manufacturing company. Okay, Alexander, in this case Patricia Hay Alexander, once again, she took over the super flag business after her husband Jim, who was a friend of Ski's. After her husband, Jim, who was a friend of Ski, Jim Alexander, retired commander in the U.S. Coast Guard and Ski's best friend and business associate. She was appointed as a trustee for all of Ski's belongings and businesses after he passed in the year 2002. Let's see here. They, both Jim and Ski, have had a huge adoration for the American flag. This is Alexander talking still in the interview. My husband was retired from the military. This is Jim, her husband. As far as he was concerned, what Ski was doing was absolutely wonderful. And both Jim and her supported it. The Alexanders had known Ski since the early 1980s when Jim offered Ski his sidewalk cleaning services for the gatherings that Ski would have right here on this street. Right next to the 132-foot tall telephone pole outside of his house on Lime Avenue, which is where we're at right now. Alexander recalled, this is Mrs. Alexander, he had this big podium that he would put out the podium, he put out chairs. The cops were very reasonable. The police would block off the streets in front of his house so that all the neighbors and anybody else who wanted to come by and sit down was more than welcome to. This would be a constant affair throughout the year for days such as Flag Day, Veterans Day, and whenever Ski simply wanted to do it. Here's something interesting that wasn't mentioned in this article, but Ski ran for the mayor of Long Beach 5 times in a row. Of course, he didn't win, but you're starting to see who Ski was. He was that guy in the neighborhood. I love this. This is literally part of Americana. This is literally part of your history, Long Beach. You're a resident of Long Beach. You own property down here, you live down here, or you're raising a family down here, whatever the case may be. This is your history. Okay? So let's continue here a little bit more. Ski was particularly fond of World War I veteran Fred Hummer, or Fred Humer, however it is pronounced. Fred, who passed and is buried at the pole in front of Ski's house. He was buried here in 1997, probably his ashes. So that's person number 1 that's interred here at the pole. That was Fred Hummer, or Fred Humer, World War I veteran. Previously, he had also buried his friend and veteran, Colonel Clem Maloney, during a public ceremony on St. Patrick's Day in 1990, underneath where the pole lies today. So that's 2 people that I just mentioned that are interred in this pole. 2 people. A fan of St. Patrick's Day, another annual holiday ritual of Ski's was commissioning 2,000 corned beef sandwiches from Joe's Jost in Long Beach and handing them out to the homeless, complete with green Kool-Aid drinks. Let's keep going. So it says here, Ski was keen on giving back to his community, making major donations to, let's say, for example, St. Anthony's Church and the local Long Beach Symphony, which he was even given the opportunity to conduct a couple times. All right. Ski also quietly helped a mother, reportedly Ski also helped one of the local mothers here with her financial struggles, paying for her son's funeral when her son met a fatal accident. Not everyone, though, was fond of Ski. However, his neighbors sued him over his flag, that large monster flag he would fly up here every once in a while. They sued him because they said his flag was too noisy. It was known, apparently around here, according to Mrs. Alexander, it was known as the case of the flapping flag. So that means this went to court, and that was probably the old court building where I worked at here before they tore it down. Interesting how I'm getting tied into this in a little bit kind of way. Plus, I'm here telling the story, standing on the very grounds where all this took place. This is your city, Long Beach. Come on out here and celebrate this. Don't let this wonderful piece of history disappear into the dustbins of history and be forgotten. Come out here, celebrate it, carry the story forward. Take a picture here, take a selfie, leave a little flag or whatever you got to do. This is your history of the wonderful, wonderful, eclectic, cool, goofy neighbors that lived here once upon a time and who are now forever part of this neighborhood because they are interred in that pole or above the pole. All right. According to the case of the flapping flag, Ski lost that case. He eventually had to resize his American flag. So he lost that case, had to make the flag a little bit smaller. Although you're on TV. Although beloved by many in the city, Ski, a former alcoholic, was estranged from his family, which is usually kind of the case in those type instances. That one eclectic fellow I mentioned to you about, I used to work with down at the museum in San Diego, Model Railroad Museum down there. He was one of these guys, and because of his issues, also his family estranged him, and I'm kind of going through the same thing right now. So these guys actually really mean a lot to me. They're very dear to my heart. The immediate family wanted nothing to do with him because apparently he was not nice when he was drunk, Mrs. Alexander said. Ski also ran for Long Beach mayor multiple times. I believe it was 5 times. He ran over and over again every year, every time that Ernie Kell, who was the mayor of Long Beach from 1984 to 1994, was a mayor, Alexander recalled. Now, apart from making flags, Ski also ran his own bumper sticker business where he printed many patriotic and positive phrases, since he himself was a former alcoholic at the time. Aside from his big red fire truck, Ski was also noticeable for his large van, which had every inch of it covered with the same bumper stickers he made in his shop and that he sold. So we've seen that too in the neighborhoods, that guy that has his car covered in bumper stickers or Republican bumper stickers or Democratic candidate bumper stickers. Yeah, I've known and I live in neighborhoods with guys like that too. That was Ski. We got a little bit more. Bear with me. Interestingly, 2 years prior to his death, Ski had held his own mock funeral in this garage. He laid shirtless in a plexiglass coffin. Ski was able to show off the array of American flags, eagles, and Santa Claus themes tattoos, which he had all over his chest and back. With the help of a hypnotist, he lay still as his friends came and ate corned beef sandwiches while watching over him. How quirky is that? Or as today's kids say, how creepy is that? Okay, he held his own mock funeral in his garage in a plexiglass coffin, naked, showing off his tattoos, with the help of hypnotist. And he said he laid still as his friends came and ate corned beef sandwiches while watching over him. Hey, it says right here, these are quotes. Hey, he was an old guy and he was a real character, said Mrs. Alexander. Remember I said we all know these guys and they're usually a cast of characters. Ski, your Ski, Long Beach City's own Ski Dembski was your character. He was laid upon his death. He was found dead actually January 19th, 2002, and he died at the age of 72. He was laid to rest in an in-state manner in his own garage in the same plexiglass coffin from which he held that mock funeral I mentioned here about a minute ago, shirtless and all. Over 2,000 people, including a cardinal priest from Los Angeles, the big church, came to his funeral and signed his book. He, the cardinal, had told Jim, that's Mrs. Alexander's husband, that Ski had done a lot of things for the church. He was a good Catholic boy. None of his family attended. No surprise there. I called the number I had for his sister, says Mrs. Alexander. It was a working number, but nobody ever answered, she said. I left a message and nobody ever called back. The Los Angeles Times and the Long Beach Report newspapers reported the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office ruled his death a suicide. Toxicology tests found a level of painkiller in his system beyond therapeutic levels, and Jim had mentioned to his wife, Mrs. Alexander, the lady they're quoting here in the paper, that he was ill and he was in a large amount of pain, and that he just didn't think he could carry on anymore and life was getting too hard. His ashes, this is number 3. Let's let this motorcycle go by real quick. So now we're going to talk about the third person that's interred. Let's let this bike go by real quick. So we mentioned there's 3 people interred in that pole right there. One at the base of the pole where we found that tombstone looking like a stone or monument over there. The second one actually inside the pole, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second. And the third, Mr. Dembski, his ashes were interred in the metallic eagle that sits atop of the 130-foot pole, which is still in front of the corner of Lime and 4th Street. So let's take a look at that. Mr. Dembski, Ski, is buried, or his ashes. I turned way up there, wherever you don't see the eagle on camera. But we'll get a nice shot for it. What a great story for this time of year, around Halloween, right? There's 3 patriots. There are 3 patriots who absolutely love their country so much that they requested for their remains to be interred at their beloved pole. Okay, there is no more flag flying on the pole anymore. The super flag business is still around. By the way, many of the flags, including the super flag, are currently in storage, but can and continue to be rented out. The bumper sticker business was given to William Wild Bill Lanham, a local business associate and friend of Ski. According to Mrs. Alexander, the wife of Jim is a friend of Ski. I thought they'd be interested in keeping that going, but they just kind of let it go. Ski and Alexander, that would be Jim, had acquired the friendship of a much younger Lanham who had traveled around the country with them, helping them transport the flags. So he left Mr. Lanham the bumper sticker business free. Let's see. Lanham also continues to assist Mrs. Alexander in transporting flags throughout the country. I don't think I can do this without him, is what Mrs. Alexander said of Mr. Lanham. Visitors today can also see the statue of Ski and his beloved pet parrot, Peppy, in front of his home next to the pole. I kind of made a quick glance for it. I couldn't find it. These are residential homes, including the one behind me. I don't want to poke into windows or anything, and I want to let them have their privacy. And I'm sure they're going to be glad to see me gone here in about a minute forever with my pesky videos. I'll keep this going as long. Let me see here. I'll keep this going as long as I'm alive, she's Mrs. Alexander said of the Super Flag business. But if I have to set up anything, just in case anything happens to me or Bill, and Bill will take it. Let's see another one here. Alexander's hopes that the city of Long Beach will preserve some of Ski's memorabilia for anybody who wants to find out about Ski. She says what's not saved in the garage is currently put away in storage for the time being. He was Long Beach's most unforgettable character, according to Mrs. Alexander, as she looked back at dozens of photos of him laid out. Anyone who lives in Long Beach, or anyone who lived in Long Beach, absolutely knew who Ski Dembski was. So that's it for today. I thought that was an interesting story. I printed it. I had to do a part 2. I did not want that story to disappear into the ages, okay? Let's keep moving it forward. Let's celebrate the pole and its 3 occupants. Incidentally, when the state found out about the second guy being that would be Clem Maloney being interred in the pole, they said they would let it go for now, but it was illegal in the state of California. So what Ski and I guess his associates did is they lowered the urn down into the bottom of the pole. They poured concrete through that opening, that door there. They poured concrete down on top of the urn, encasing the urn in solid concrete. That way when the concrete dried, if the state ever wanted to come back and pull his ashes out, because it was not allowed, guess what? You ain't getting Clem Maloney's ashes out of there no matter what. And that would explain why when I came here the other day, let's move the camera a little forward. Why when I came here the other day and I knocked, using my knuckle, I rapped on the side of that pole, the base of that pole, and it was solid. And I said, man, they must be using thick steel. Well, yeah, I found out they're using 1/2-inch steel, but it was more solid than it should have been. I mean, by many, many times over. And that's because that lower portion, probably about 4 foot high, is completely covered in solid concrete. So I thought you'd figure you get a kick out of that. Thank you for joining me right here on the Florentino Rebuilding Company YouTube channel, your outpost on the West Coast, out here in sunny Southern California, as we talk about Long Beach's own unique and crazy historically in terms of story pole. Real quick, well, you can't see the names now, but there you go. Colonel Clem Maloney, Mr. Hummer, who's buried at the base of the pole, or his ashes anyways, and Mr. Ski, who sits on top of his pole. Oh, I can't know if I'm capturing that sucker forever. About 200 feet above the city of Long Beach. All right, you all, thank you for joining me once again, and you all have an amazing rest of your week. But most importantly, you all have a blessed rest of the week. You all take care. Hope you enjoy this. Bye.